Sign this or the wedding's off. My fiancé Marcus slid that thick prenuptial agreement across the mahogany table like it was a death sentence. And baby, in a way, it was just not mine. Come here, pull yourself all the way up close to your screen right now. Because I'm sitting here in my Chicago brownstone, with Lake Michigan wind howling outside. And I need you to feel every single word of what I'm about to tell you like it's carved into your own heart. Wherever you're watching from tonight, Chicago, Bronzeville, Hyde Park, Atlanta, Houston, Brooklyn, Los Angeles, wherever God's got you planted right now, I need you to drop your city in the comments so I can see my family growing. And tell me what you're doing right now. Are you washing dishes, folding laundry, sitting in your car on your lunch break? I want to know who's riding with me tonight, because this story right here. This one's going to make you want to stand up and shout before it's over. My name is Janelle Marie Thompson, and up until 3 weeks ago, I was just a high school English teacher at Westside Academy on the south side of Chicago, making $52,000 a year, grading essays till midnight, buying school supplies with my own money, and loving every single one of my babies who walked through that classroom door. Marcus Whitfield was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, handsome, smooth talking, son of the Whitfield real estate empire that owned half of downtown Chicago. His family had money that went back 4 generations, the kind of money that builds wings on hospitals and gets your name on museum plaques. We met at a charity gala where my principal dragged me along because the school was getting a donation. Marcus walked up to me in my Target dress and clearance heels, looked me dead in my eyes, and said, "You're the most beautiful woman in this room." I should have known right then that smooth words don't always come from honest hearts. But I was 32 years old, tired of dating men who couldn't commit, and Marcus seemed like he had his life together. He was 41, established, mature. He took me to nice restaurants, met my mama, talked about building a future. 6 months later, he proposed at Navy Pier with a ring that cost more than I made in a year. I said yes. His family smiled tight smiles and said all the right things, but I felt it from the very beginning, that coldness underneath. His mother, Patricia Whitfield, with her stiff helmet of silver hair and her pearl necklaces that probably cost more than my car, would look at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her Louboutin heels. At Sunday dinners at their mansion in Kenilworth, she'd ask me questions designed to remind me of my place. "So, Janelle, dear, how much do teachers make these days? It must be so difficult. Do you have any investments? Real estate, stocks?" Marcus's last girlfriend was in finance. They had so much in common. His father, Richard Whitfield, barely acknowledged my existence. When he did speak to me, it was to lecture about financial responsibility and understanding the difference between classes. Marcus's sister, Lauren, would literally laugh when I talked about my students or my neighborhood. "You actually teach in the South Side?" she'd say, wrinkling her nose like I worked in a landfill. "Aren't you afraid?" I swallowed every insult, smiled through every condescending comment, told myself it would get better after the wedding. Marcus would defend me sometimes, but weakly, like he was embarrassed to have to do it at all. "Mom, that's not necessary," he'd say, but never with any real conviction. The worst was 3 months before the wedding, at their annual 4th of July party at the Lake Forest estate. I was standing by the pool talking to another guest when I heard Patricia's voice drift over from the cabana. "I don't know what Marcus sees in her," she said to a friend. "She's pretty enough, I suppose, but she has no breeding, no connections, no money. Teachers don't build empires. They just grade papers and go home tired." Her friend laughed. "Well, at least there's the prenup." "Oh, absolutely," Patricia said. "Richard's lawyers made it ironclad. If this little experiment doesn't work out, she'll leave with exactly what she brought, nothing." I stood there frozen, champagne glass shaking in my hand, and that's when I knew. This wasn't a marriage. This was them letting their son play with someone they considered beneath him, with a legal safety net to catch him when he got bored. But I loved Marcus, or I thought I did. So I pushed it down and kept planning the wedding. Then came August 15th, 2024, 3 weeks before the wedding. Marcus called me that morning, voice clipped and professional like he was scheduling a business meeting. "We need to finalize the prenup today. My parents insist. Meet me at my father's office at 2 p.m. The lawyers will be there." My stomach dropped. "I thought we talked about this. I thought you said we didn't need—" "Janelle." His voice went cold in a way I'd never heard before. "This isn't negotiable. My family has assets to protect. You understand that, don't you?" "No, baby. No, sweetheart. Just my name, flat and final. If you don't sign," he continued, "my parents will pull funding for the wedding. We'll have to cancel everything." "Is that what you want?" I felt something crack inside my chest. I'll be there, I said quietly. I hung up and sat on my couch in my little one-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville, staring at my hands, and for the first time I let myself cry. Not because of the prenup itself, I understood protecting family wealth. I wasn't marrying Marcus for his money anyway. I cried because of what it represented, the lack of trust, the assumption that I was a gold digger, the way his whole family had already decided I was temporary. But I dried my tears, put on my best outfit, a simple black sheath dress from Nordstrom Rack, my good heels, my grandmother's earrings, and drove downtown to the Whitfield Holdings building on Wacker Drive. The office was all glass and marble and intimidation. I walked into the conference room, and there they were, arranged like a firing squad. Marcus at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable but determined. Richard Whitfield to his right, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a pest he was paying an exterminator to remove. Patricia to his left, that same tight smile, fingers drumming on the table. Lauren sitting back smirking, clearly there just for the entertainment. And at the other end of the table, a silver-haired man in an impeccable charcoal suit with a stack of legal documents in front of him. The lawyer. Marcus gestured to the empty chair across from him. Janelle, thank you for coming. This is Alexander Pierce, our family attorney. He'll walk you through the document. I sat down slowly, hands folded in my lap, and that's when the lawyer, Alexander Pierce, looked up at me for the first time. Our eyes met, and I swear on everything I love, the whole room tilted, because I knew those eyes. I had seen them once in a photograph my mother kept hidden in a shoebox in her closet. A photograph I wasn't supposed to find when I was 12 years old, of a young man holding my mother, both of them smiling like they'd conquered the world. A photograph she snatched from my hands and never spoke about again. Alexander Pierce looked at me with an expression I couldn't read: shock, recognition, something deeper and more painful. His hands went still on the papers. Marcus cleared his throat. Alexander, can we get started? Alexander blinked, recovered his professional mask, and opened the folder. His voice was steady, but I heard something underneath it, something trembling. Miss Thompson, he began. This prenuptial agreement is straightforward. In the event of divorce, you would waive all claims to assets acquired before and during the marriage by Marcus Whitfield or the Whitfield family. You would receive no alimony, no share of property, no claim to the family trust. Patricia leaned forward. We're not trying to be harsh, dear. We're just protecting what our family built over generations. You understand, Richard added. If the marriage works, none of this matters, but if it doesn't, we need to know our legacy is secure. Lauren actually giggled. It's just business, nothing personal. Everything about it was personal. Marcus pushed a pen across the table toward me. Just sign it, Janelle. Then we can move on and focus on our wedding. Our wedding, like it was something we were building together, not something his family was holding hostage. I looked down at the document, 73 pages of legal language that basically said, you're poor, you'll stay poor, and we want it in writing. My hands started to shake. That's when Alexander Pierce did something strange. He stood up and said, I'd like to speak with Miss Thompson privately before she signs. Standard protocol, to ensure she understands the terms fully and has no questions. Richard frowned. That's not necessary. It's legally advisable, Alexander said firmly. 5 minutes, there's a small conference room next door. Marcus looked annoyed but nodded. Fine. 5 minutes. Alexander gathered the documents and gestured toward the door. I stood on shaking legs and followed him out of the room, feeling all their eyes burning into my back. He led me to a smaller conference room down the hall, closed the door, and the second it clicked shut, his professional mask crumbled. Janelle, he whispered. Janelle Marie Thompson. My middle name. How did he know my middle name? I backed up against the wall. Who are you? His eyes filled with tears, actual tears. This polished, powerful lawyer looked like he was about to fall apart. I'm your father. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. What? Your mother, Diane Thompson. We were together 29 years ago. I was young, stupid, trapped by my own family's expectations. When she got pregnant, my parents gave me an ultimatum: leave her or they'd cut me off entirely, destroy my career before it started. He was talking fast now, words tumbling over each other. I was 25 years old and terrified. I made the worst decision of my life. I left. I sent money through an intermediary for years, but she sent it all back. She told me to never contact her again. And I honored that because I thought it's what she wanted. But I never stopped looking for you. I hired investigators. I kept track of where you were, what you were doing. I couldn't breathe. You're lying. I'm not. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, showed me a photo. My mother, young and radiant and pregnant, standing next to a younger version of the man in front of me. The same photo from the shoebox. I have more, he said. Birth records, letters she wrote me before she cut contact. I've kept everything, hoping someday. Stop. I held up my hand, my whole body was shaking. You left us. You left her to raise me alone. We struggled, we barely made it some months, and you were what? Out here becoming a billionaire lawyer, driving fancy cars, living in some mansion? Yes, his voice broke, and I've regretted it every single day of my life. I don't believe you. Then let me prove it. He grabbed the prenup documents. Don't sign this, or better yet, sign it. Because Janelle, you need to know something. Something I learned about 3 years ago when I finally hired a forensic genealogist to confirm what I already knew in my heart. He moved closer, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. I'm not just your father. I'm also the sole executor of the Grayson Trust, your maternal grandfather's estate. Your mother never told you because she cut ties with her father before you were born. But he never stopped looking for you either. He passed away 2 years ago and left everything to his only grandchild. You. My knees buckled. I sat down hard in a conference chair. How much? I whispered. Alexander Pierce, my father, looked me dead in the eyes. $4.7 billion. Dollars. The room went completely silent except for my ragged breathing. I stared at Alexander Pierce, at my father, like he'd just spoken in a language I didn't understand. $4.7 billion, I repeated. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like stones I was trying to swallow. Your grandfather, Malcolm Grayson, built a pharmaceutical empire, Alexander said, sitting down across from me. He and your mother had a falling out when she was 23, something about her refusing an arranged marriage. She walked away from everything, but he never stopped trying to find her to reconcile. When he got sick in 2020, he hired me to locate his only heir. You. My head was spinning. My mother never said anything. Not one word about money or family, or she was protecting you from expectations, from people who might use you, from becoming someone you weren't. Alexander's voice was gentle now. Diane was the strongest woman I ever knew. Stubborn as hell, proud, and absolutely unwilling to compromise her values. That's why I fell in love with her. And that's why losing her destroyed me. She's not dead, I said sharply. She lives in Chatham. She works at the post office. I know, he smiled sadly. I know everything about both of you, and I know she'd kill me if she knew I was here talking to you. But Janelle, you need to understand what you're walking into. That prenup those people want you to sign. It's designed to humiliate you, to make sure you know your place, to protect their money from you. But I don't want their money. I know you don't, but they don't believe that. People like the Whitfields can't imagine anyone marrying for love because they've never experienced it. Everything is transactional to them. He leaned forward. The trust became active on your 30th birthday, but because we couldn't locate you at the time, you were using your mother's maiden name instead of her married name from her brief first marriage. It's been in probate. I had it unsealed 2 weeks ago. I was going to contact you next month. And then I walked into this room. And then you walked into this room. And I realized fate had just given me a chance to do something I should have done 30 years ago. Protect my daughter. I stood up, paced to the window, looked out at the Chicago skyline. From up here, the city looked small, manageable, like something you could hold in your hand. Why didn't you say something when you realized who I was? When Marcus hired your firm, I didn't know at first. You came into the initial meetings, but I was handling another case. It wasn't until Richard Whitfield's secretary sent over the background check on you. Yes, they ran a background check that I saw Diane's name, your mother's name. And then I saw your birthday and I knew. So you've been sitting on this for how long? 3 weeks. He looked ashamed. I wanted to tell you. I started to tell you a dozen times. But I also wanted to see what kind of man Marcus was, what kind of family, whether they deserved you. And, Alexander's face hardened, they don't. I've seen the way they talk about you when you're not around. The way they talk about you when you are around. Marcus is weak. He lets them bully you. And they see you as a phase, an experiment, something to be tolerated until he comes to his senses. Every word landed like a blow because every word was true. I'd felt it all along, but hearing it confirmed by someone else, by my father, made it real in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. I can't just walk away, I said quietly. The wedding is in 3 weeks, everyone's invited. My mama bought a dress, my students are excited, I'd look like a fool. Better to look like a fool now than to feel like one for the next 20 years. I turned to face him. What do you want me to do? Alexander Pierce smiled, and for the first time I saw something familiar in his face, something that looked like me when I had a plan. I want you to sign that prenup. What? Sign it, play their game. Let them think they've won. He pulled out a different folder from his briefcase. Because what they don't know, what Marcus and his entire smug family don't know, is that prenup only protects their assets from you. It doesn't protect them from your assets, or from the trust that's about to make you one of the wealthiest women in Chicago. My heart started pounding. The prenup they wrote is so focused on protecting Whitfield money that they never considered you might have your own, Alexander continued. Standard practice in prenups is mutual disclosure of assets, but they were so certain you had nothing, they waived that clause. They didn't ask, they just assumed. So legally, every dollar in the Grayson Trust is yours alone. Marcus has no claim to it, neither does his family, and if you divorce after the marriage, you keep everything while they keep everything. Except, he paused, smile widening. The trust terms specify that the primary heir can distribute funds to charitable causes at will, and there's a specific clause about community investment in education and housing. I started to see it. The Whitfield real estate empire has been struggling since 2022. They're leveraged to the teeth. They owe money to half the banks in Chicago. They've been hiding it well, but I've seen their books. I represent three of their creditors. Alexander leaned back. One significant push, say, a large-scale community investment initiative that drives up property values in neighborhoods they've been planning to develop through predatory practices, and their whole house of cards collapses. You want me to destroy them. I want you to free yourself. What you do with your money and power after that is entirely up to you. He slid the folder across to me. These are the trust documents. Read them tonight, think about it. And then tomorrow, if you want my help as your lawyer, as your father, or both, call me. He wrote a number on the back of his business card. That's my personal cell. I've waited 30 years to hear from you. I can wait one more day. I took the card, hands shaking. Does my mother know you're here? No, and I won't tell her unless you want me to. This is your choice, Janelle, your life, your decision. I'm just trying to give you information you deserve to have. Someone knocked on the door. Marcus's voice came through. It's been 15 minutes. We need to wrap this up. Alexander raised his voice. One moment, then quietly to me. What do you want to do? I looked at the prenup. At the trust documents. At this man who claimed to be my father and who had just handed me the nuclear codes to blow up my entire engagement. I'm going to sign it, I said. Good girl, Alexander gathered his papers. Remember, look hesitant. Look like they've beaten you. Let them enjoy their victory. We walked back into the conference room. Every Whitfield eye locked on me like sharks sensing blood. Everything okay? Patricia asked with fake concern. Yes, I said softly, taking my seat. Mr. Pierce explained everything very clearly. Marcus reached across and took my hand. Baby, I know this seems harsh, but it's just a formality. It doesn't mean I don't love you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't recognize the man I'd agreed to marry. Or maybe I was just finally seeing him clearly for the first time. I know, I said, I understand. Alexander handed me the pen. Our fingers touched and I felt him squeeze my hand once quickly. I signed my name on every page. Janelle Marie Thompson, over and over, while the Whitfields watched with barely concealed satisfaction. Richard actually smiled. Excellent, now we can all move forward. Patricia stood up. I'm so glad we got this unpleasantness out of the way. Janelle, you should come to dinner this Sunday. We'll discuss final wedding details. Lauren was already on her phone, probably texting her friends about how they'd put me in my place. Marcus kissed my forehead. I'm proud of you for being mature about this. I wanted to laugh or scream or both. Instead, I smiled and said, Of course, it's what people do when they love each other. They protect each other. Exactly. Marcus started gathering his things. Alexander, thank you for handling this so professionally. It's what you pay me for, Alexander said smoothly. Miss Thompson, if you have any questions about the document, you have my card. Our eyes met across the table. A whole conversation happened in that 3-second glance. I left that office building and sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, shaking so hard I couldn't drive. Then I opened the folder Alexander had given me. The Grayson Trust documents were exactly as he'd described. $4.7 billion in pharmaceutical patents, real estate holdings, and investment portfolios. My grandfather's entire empire waiting for me. There were letters, too. Dozens of them, written by Malcolm Grayson over the years, addressed to my granddaughter, wherever you are. I read them right there in the car, tears streaming down my face. He talked about my mother, about how much he loved her, and how devastated he was when she left. He talked about his regrets, his mistakes, his desperate hope that someday he'd find his only grandchild. He talked about building the trust specifically so that I'd never have to depend on anyone, never have to compromise myself for money, never have to feel trapped. The last letter was dated 3 months before he died. To my granddaughter Janelle, it read, I'm told you're a teacher, that you're kind, smart, dedicated to helping others. Your grandmother would be so proud. I wish I could have met you. I wish I could have told you how much you were loved, even by a grandfather you never knew existed. This trust is my apology for the years we lost. Use it to build the life you deserve. Never let anyone make you feel small. You come from giants. I sobbed in that parking garage until I had no tears left. Then I called the number on Alexander's card. He answered on the first ring. Janelle, I need your help, I said. Not just as a lawyer, as my father, I need you to teach me how to do this. His voice broke. I've been waiting my whole life to hear you say that. We met the next morning at a different office, his private practice, not the firm he used for corporate clients. For the next 2 weeks, Alexander taught me everything: how to read financial statements, how to structure charitable trusts, how to identify predatory lending practices, how to trace real estate holdings through shell companies, how to use community investment as a weapon against gentrification. He introduced me to the other trustees, to financial advisors, to the team my grandfather had assembled to manage the empire he'd built. And every evening he told me stories about my mother, about their love, about his mistakes, about the woman I came from. She was fierce, he said one night over takeout in his office. Wouldn't take anything from anyone, including me when I didn't deserve her. Do you still love her? Every day of my life, he looked at me with such raw honesty it hurt. I know I have no right to ask this. But when this is over, whatever you decide about Marcus, about the Whitfields, would you let me try to talk to her? Would you let me try to apologize? I don't know if she'll listen. I know, but I have to try. I've spent 30 years being a coward. I don't want to die one. The wedding got closer. Marcus got more stressed about details and less attentive to me. His family got more demanding, more insulting, more certain they'd won. And I smiled and nodded and played my role while Alexander and I built our plan. 3 days before the wedding, Alexander pulled me aside. You can still walk away, he said. You don't have to go through with this. You don't have to marry him to prove a point. I thought about it, really thought about it. I know, I said finally. But I need to see his face. I need him to know what he gave up. Not because I'm cruel, but because he needs to learn that people aren't disposable, that love isn't a game, and that the woman he thought was beneath him was never beneath anyone. Alexander nodded slowly. Your mother would be proud and terrified, probably both. Probably? For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm proud too. I know I don't have the right, but I am. I hugged him then, the first time I'd ever hugged my father. He held on like I might disappear. September 7th, 2024, my wedding day. I woke up in my mama's house in Chatham, in my childhood bedroom with the lavender walls and the bookshelf full of novels I'd collected since third grade. Mama brought me coffee and sat on the edge of my bed, studying my face like she used to when I was little and pretending not to be sick so I could go to school. You sure about this, baby? She asked quietly. I looked at my mother, Diane Thompson, 56 years old, still beautiful, still strong, still the woman who raised me alone on a postal worker's salary and never once made me feel like we were missing anything. Mama, I said, I need to tell you something. If it's about that prenup, I already know. Marcus's mama couldn't wait to tell Sister Williams at church, and you know Sister Williams called me the same day. It's not about the prenup. I took a deep breath. It's about Alexander Pierce. Her coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Her whole body went rigid. How do you know that name? Because he's the Whitfield family lawyer. And because 3 weeks ago he told me he's my father. The cup fell from her hands, shattered on the hardwood floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. He had no right, she started, voice shaking with fury. He had every right. Mama, why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you looking at me different. I didn't want you thinking you came from rejection. I didn't want you wondering if you were wanted. But I was wanted. He told me everything. About his family, about the choice they gave him, about the money he sent that you returned, about how he looked for me. He left us because he was 25 and terrified and didn't know how to fight his own family. I'm not saying he was right, Mama. I'm just saying I understand. And I understand why you cut him off. And I love you for protecting me, but Mama, there's more. I told her about Malcolm Grayson, about the trust, about the $4.7 billion. My mother, who never cried, who never broke, who raised me to be strong because she was the definition of strength, put her face in her hands and sobbed. Daddy tried to find us, she whispered. All those years he was trying. He never stopped loving you. Alexander has letters, so many letters, Mama, written to both of us. She looked up at me with red eyes. Why are you telling me this today? On your wedding day? Because I need you to know that what I'm about to do, I'm not doing out of anger or revenge. I'm doing because I finally understand what you taught me. That love isn't about money or status or family names. It's about respect, and Marcus doesn't respect me. His family never will, and I deserve better. Mama took my face in her hands like she used to when I was little. You deserve everything, baby. You always have. Then trust me to handle this, and after maybe talk to Alexander. Not for him, for you, because I think you both deserve a chance to heal. She didn't agree, but she didn't say no either. The wedding was at the Drake Hotel on Michigan Avenue. Because, of course, the Whitfields wanted everyone to see their son marrying the poor teacher, wanted everyone to witness their magnanimous acceptance of me into their dynasty. 400 guests, orchestra, ice sculptures, flowers that cost more than I made in a month. My students were there, dressed in their Sunday best, sitting in the back rows and looking overwhelmed by the grandeur. My mama's church family was there, the black women who'd helped raise me, watching everything with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. And Marcus's family and friends were there, spread across the front sections in designer clothes and bored expressions, already half drunk on champagne, treating my wedding like just another society event to endure. I wore a dress that cost $40,000. Patricia insisted, paid for it herself, made a big show of being generous. It was beautiful, and I hated every inch of it because it wasn't mine. It was her vision of what Marcus's bride should look like, but I wore it. Played the part, smiled for the cameras. Alexander was there too, sitting quietly in the middle section, not part of the wedding party but there as family council. Only I knew what that really meant. The ceremony was everything a fairy tale wedding should be. Pastor spoke about love and commitment and partnership. Marcus said his vows looking at me like I was his prize, his achievement, his charitable act. When it was my turn, I looked right into his eyes and said, I vow to be truthful, to honor what's real, to never let you forget this moment. He smiled, thinking I was being romantic. I was being prophetic. We sealed it with a kiss while everyone applauded. The reception was held in the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers, gold everything, a band that had played for presidents. I sat at the head table next to Marcus, smiling and waving, while his family held court and my family huddled together, looking uncomfortable in this world of excess. That's when Alexander stood up to give a toast. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, tapping his glass. The room quieted. I've been the Whitfield family attorney for 15 years. I've handled their mergers, their acquisitions, their legal challenges. I've watched Marcus grow from a boy into a man, and today I had the honor of watching him marry a truly remarkable woman. Patricia beamed. Richard nodded approvingly. Marcus squeezed my hand. But I must confess something, Alexander continued, and his tone shifted. I'm not here today just as the family attorney, I'm here as Janelle's father. The room went dead silent. Marcus's hand went slack in mine. Patricia's smile froze. Richard actually stood up halfway like he was going to object. That's right, Alexander said calmly. 30 years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I walked away from the woman I loved and the daughter we created together. I've spent every day since regretting it. And 3 weeks ago, fate put me in a room with my daughter, and I got a chance to finally do something I should have done decades ago. Protect her? Alexander, what the hell? Richard started. I'm not finished. Alexander's voice went cold. You see, the Whitfields asked me to draw up a prenuptial agreement, an ironclad document designed to protect their assets from Janelle, and I did exactly that. But what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, is whether Janelle had assets of her own. I stood up slowly. Every eye in the room locked on me. Janelle Marie Thompson, Alexander continued, is the sole heir to the Grayson Trust, established by her maternal grandfather, Malcolm Grayson, founder of Grayson Pharmaceuticals. The trust, which became active upon her 30th birthday, is currently valued at $4.7 billion. You could have heard a pin drop in that ballroom. Marcus turned to me, face white. What? 4.7 billion, I repeated clearly. That's billion with a B, Marcus. More than your family's entire real estate portfolio, more than they'll ever see in their lifetimes. Patricia was on her feet. This is ridiculous. Alexander, you're fired? You can't fire me, Alexander said pleasantly. As of this morning, I resigned from your firm to serve as primary counsel for the Grayson Trust. But thank you for the years of employment. Richard's face was turning purple. This is fraud, misrepresentation. Actually, it's neither, I said, and my voice carried across that entire ballroom. Your prenup was so focused on protecting your money from me, you never asked about my money. You never required mutual disclosure. You just assumed I had nothing because that's what you wanted to believe. I looked at Marcus. Really looked at him, this man I'd almost spent my life with. Did you know, I asked quietly, about how they talked about me, about what they really thought? He couldn't meet my eyes. Answer me, Marcus. Did you know? They're my family, he said weakly. They just wanted to protect. They wanted to humiliate me. And you let them. You stood by while your mother called me a gold digger at every family dinner. You said nothing when your father lectured me about knowing my place. You laughed when Lauren made jokes about my neighborhood. Janelle, I'm sorry. You're not sorry, you're embarrassed. There's a difference. I turned to address the whole room. The prenup the Whitfields forced me to sign protects their assets, but it doesn't touch mine. And as of tomorrow morning, the Grayson Trust will begin a community investment initiative focused on affordable housing, education funding, and preventing predatory real estate practices in South Side neighborhoods. Richard's face went from purple to gray. He knew exactly what that meant. Furthermore, Alexander added, I've been authorized to purchase several debt portfolios from banks around Chicago. Interesting coincidence, many of them involve Whitfield Holdings properties. You can't do this, Patricia hissed. You're ruining us? No, I said firmly. You ruined yourselves by being cruel, by treating people like they're beneath you, by thinking money makes you better than everyone else. I looked at my students in the back, at my mama's church family, at all the people who'd loved me when I had nothing. These people taught me that wealth isn't about what you have. It's about who you are, and you Whitfields, you're bankrupt in every way that matters. I turned to Marcus one final time. I'm going to have this marriage annulled, not because of the money, because you don't love me. You love the idea of saving me, of being my hero, of being the generous, rich man who lifted up the poor teacher. But you never saw me as an equal, you never will. Janelle, wait, he grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Don't. Don't pretend now. We both know this marriage was over before it started. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, Alexander on one side and my mother on the other. Behind me, I heard chaos erupting, Patricia screaming, Richard yelling, Marcus calling my name. I didn't look back. My students started clapping first. Then Mama's church family joined in. Then, one by one, other guests who'd watched the Whitfields be cruel for years started applauding too. By the time I reached the lobby, half the wedding was on their feet cheering. The other half was still in shock. That night, I went back to my apartment in Bronzeville, changed out of that $40,000 dress and into my favorite worn-out t-shirt and leggings. Sat on my couch with my mama and Alexander and a bottle of wine we bought from the corner store. What happens now? Mama asked. Now, I looked at Alexander, at my father. Now I start learning how to use this money the right way, how to help people instead of hurting them, how to build instead of destroy. And the Whitfields? They'll survive or they won't. That's not my problem anymore. I took a sip of wine. But every scholarship I fund, every family I help buy a home, every predatory loan I buy out, that's me making sure no one else has to bow down to people like them just to survive. Alexander raised his glass. To second chances. Mama touched her glass to his, and something passed between them that made me look away. To being underestimated, I added. We clinked glasses and drank. 2 weeks later, the annulment went through. Marcus didn't contest it. His lawyers told him fighting would only make things worse. The Whitfield real estate empire started crumbling within a month. Loans they couldn't pay. Properties they couldn't maintain. A reputation destroyed by words spreading about how they treated people. Richard had a heart attack, survived, but retired. Patricia withdrew from society entirely. Lauren got a job in her husband's family business, probably complaining every day about having to actually work. Marcus moved to New York. I heard through mutual friends that he's dating someone from old money now. Someone his parents approve of, someone who knows her place. I started the Grayson Educational Initiative, full scholarships for South Side students, new computers and books for underfunded schools, grants for teachers buying supplies with their own money. I kept teaching, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because those kids needed to see someone who looked like them, who came from where they came from, who made it without compromising her soul. And Alexander, he and my mama started talking. Slowly at first, carefully, like two people walking on broken glass. I don't know if they'll find their way back to each other. That's their journey. But 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, I came home to find them having coffee in my mama's kitchen, laughing about something. And for the first time in my life, I saw what my mother looked like when she was happy. Really happy. Not just content or okay or managing. Happy. That's when I knew everything, all the pain, all the humiliation, all the fear had been worth it. Because sometimes you have to walk through hell to find your way home. And sometimes the people who think they're above you are really just standing on a foundation built on sand. One good wave, and it all comes crashing down. Now let me talk directly to you, whoever you are watching this right now. Maybe you're in Chicago like me. Maybe you're in Atlanta or Houston or Baltimore or Oakland or anywhere people are grinding every day just to survive. Maybe you've been looked down on, talked to like you're less than, made to feel like you should be grateful for whatever scraps people throw you. Maybe you've sat in rooms where people talked about you like you weren't there, or talked to you like your feelings don't matter, or treated your love like it was a charity case. If you have, I need you to hear this. You are not beneath anyone, not one single person on this earth, not the ones with money, not the ones with fancy degrees or expensive cars or family names that go back generations. Your worth is not determined by your bank account or your zip code or what kind of school you went to. Your worth is inherent. It's in your humanity. It's in your kindness, your resilience, your ability to love even when you've been hurt. Don't you ever let anyone make you sign a document, literal or metaphorical, that says you're less than you are. Don't you ever let anyone treat you like you should be grateful they chose you. Real love doesn't come with contracts and conditions and clauses to protect people from you. Real love is built on trust and respect and seeing each other as equals, no matter what the world says about your differences. And if you're in a situation right now where someone is making you feel small, where you're walking on eggshells, where you're constantly trying to prove you're worthy of basic human dignity, hear me when I say this. Walk away. I don't care how close the wedding is. I don't care how much money's been spent. I don't care who's going to be disappointed or embarrassed. Walk away. Because I promise you, the embarrassment of canceling lasts a few months. The soul death of staying in a relationship where you're not valued lasts forever. My grandfather Malcolm, who I never got to meet, wrote in one of his letters, "Never let anyone make you feel small. You come from giants. You come from giants too. You come from people who survived the Middle Passage, who built this country with their bare hands and got no credit, who raised children and buried loved ones and kept going anyway, who fought for every right you have now, who refused to break even when the whole world was trying to break them. That's your inheritance. Not money, though I pray money comes to you when you need it. Your inheritance is strength, is dignity, is the absolute refusal to accept less than you deserve. So if you're watching this and you needed a sign to leave that job where they don't appreciate you, or that relationship where they don't respect you, or that friendship where they only take and never give, this is your sign. You've got the blood of giants in your veins. Act like it. Before I go, I want to say something about Alexander, about my father. I'm not telling this story to excuse what he did. He made a terrible choice when he was young. He walked away from his responsibility. He caused my mother pain that I witnessed my whole childhood, even when she tried to hide it. But I'm also learning that people are complicated. That sometimes the worst mistakes come from fear, not malice. That everyone deserves a chance to try to make things right, even when they can't undo the harm they caused. Alexander can't give me back the childhood I should have had with a father. He can't erase my mama's struggle. He can't restore those lost years, but he can be here now. He can try, he can show up, and that has to count for something. I'm still figuring out what our relationship looks like. Some days it's good. Some days it's hard. Some days I'm angry at him for things he can't change. But we're trying. And maybe that's all any of us can do, try to be better than we were yesterday. Try to choose love over fear. Try to see people's humanity, even when they've failed us. Try to build something good from the broken pieces we've been given. That's what I'm doing with the grace and trust. Taking money that came from pain and loss and absence and turning it into scholarships and homes and hope. That's what my mama's doing, talking to Alexander again after 30 years, letting herself imagine that maybe it's not too late for them. That's what I'm asking you to do, whatever your situation is. Take the broken pieces and build something beautiful. If you made it this far in this story, you're my people. You're my community. You're the reason I keep showing up here and sharing these pieces of my heart. So do me a favor. Hit that like button if this story spoke to you. Subscribe if you want to be part of this family we're building. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's being made to feel small, someone who's forgetting their own worth, someone who needs to be reminded they come from giants. And most importantly, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what part of this story hit you hardest. Tell me about a time you had to walk away from something that wasn't serving you. Tell me your own story of being underestimated and coming out on top. Because that's how we build community, by sharing our truths, by holding each other up, by reminding each other that we're not alone in this. Every comment I read, every like matters, every share helps this message reach someone who desperately needs it. You're not just watching a video. You're part of a movement of people who refuse to be diminished, who know their worth, who are learning to use their voices and their power to change their own lives and lift others up too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now go out there and remind the world who you are. And remember the prenup they want you to sign, the one that says you're less than, that says you should be grateful, that says you're not enough. Don't sign it, you're worth more than that. You always have been. From my heart to yours, Janelle Marie Thompson, future chairman of Everything That Matters.